Alright, we're going to use our proportion skills again in this video. We're working on percent increase and percent decrease. Those are two ideas real practical in the real world, common for math courses. Not a big algebra topic, quite honestly, but again, not without merit in the real world. So let's get started. The first thing we're going to do, we're going to turn this into proportion problems. But first, what we're going to have to do is we're going to just take the difference between the new amount and the original amount. We're going to find the change. Let me just dive in and I'll show you here. So the first thing is these fees changed from $26 to $36 a unit. So the very first thing we want to do, we're just going to find that amount of change. So obviously the change between those was 10. And now we're going to turn it into the same kind of proportion problem we had before. 10, that change, is what percent of this original price. So this new change is what percent of that original price. Okay, well, let's not do it the way they're doing it. 10 is of this 26. We're looking for the percent over 100. So we'll lasso 26x is 1,000. So we're going to divide both sides by 26. Guess I don't need to do this because they already did it, but I'm going to check anyway. Yeah. So I got x is 38.46. Okay, we got it. All right, so once again, we're going to do this. We're going to find the change. It went from 55. Well, yeah, I guess we should do it like this. So you're just finding the change. It doesn't matter up or down. Just find the change. So we've got 4.5. Okay, so there's my change. So 4.5 is what percent of the original price? Well, the original price was 51. So we're going to do our is over of. There's my is. Of is 51% over 100. So we'll lasso here. We're going to divide both sides by 51. We get 8.82%. Okay, same thing. You can always pause the video if you want to try it yourself. Alright, so our change is 225 and 150. So we've got a change of 75 cents. So go 0.75 is what percent of the original price. The original price was $1.50. So I got 0.75 is my is. My of is $1.50. I think this percentage is kind of easy to see, but we'll work it anyway. We go diagonally across like always. I get 75 equals $1.50 times x. Divide both sides by $1.50. Yeah. And you get 50%. Okay, the percent decreases, we're going to do exactly the same thing. So sometimes you go work this problem where you have a negative sign showing it's decreasing. We're just going to know that it talked about a decrease, so my percentage is going to be a decrease, and otherwise it's going to work the same. So I've found my change. It's a decrease this time, but we're going to play the same game. 0.07 is what percent of the original price. The original price was $3.71. So we crunch it the same and get the same thing. Now they didn't turn that to a percent, but they should have. And so 1.9%. And we just know that it's a decrease this time. Okay, so I'm going to find my change. Okay, what do I get? 42,000. Okay, so we've got this change is what percent of the original price, or in this case, the original population, which was 672,000. So there's my is, there's my of, see of 672% over 100. Doing my lasso. Okay, same thing, just going diagonally. We've been doing this for quite some time. Now I'm dividing by some large numbers here, but it's the same thing. Okay, I'm going to use my calculator to find that. Okay, make sure I have enough zeros there. I get 6.25, which is a percent, because that's what we were looking for. Now that's a percent decrease this time, but the process is the same. Okay, let's find the change here. Original salary, new salary. So that change is, what is that? Okay, so 2,200 is what percent of the original price, which was, sorry, salary this time, original. Okay, so 2,200 is my of is 42 equals percent over 100. So I'm cross multiplying again. Now when it's 100 here, I'm just adding 2 zeros. Equals 42. Okay, dividing. So I get 5.2, we're going to round it to 4.24%. Okay, we transition here into something that seems quite different, but another main application of mathematics will be in the world of finances. And although calculating interest is very complicated, we're going to start with the most basic kind of interest, which is simple interest. This isn't typically how interest is calculated, but it's the most basic, that you just simply put your money in, and at the end of the time they pay you how much interest you have based on the rate they promised you. It gets more complicated where normally every quarter or every month they pay you part of that money in the real world, and then that money makes extra interest, so the formula gets to be quite a bit more. But this is the most basic kind. You're just going to put the money in, the principal. They promised you some interest rate, the R, and then it sits there. And at the end of that time, they give you the money they owe you, the interest on your money. Okay, so I equals PRT is our formula here. We're just finding the pieces that we have. They told us we had a principal of $12.50, like that's how much money you're putting in the bank. The rate is 4%, it's going for 5 years. So this is the most basic kind. You just crunch that, and you'd get $2,500 in interest. Okay. So interest is PRT. So I'm looking for the interest. We put 950 in the bank. Now you got to turn your rate into a decimal. We got to convert that from 3 to 0.03, and it's in there for 5 years. So we're just going to crunch. Okay, so $142.50. Okay. Okay, same thing again. We're looking for the interest. She put $3,600 in the bank. We got to change that rate to a decimal in 3 years. Okay, so $702. All right, they're just mixing it up on us now. We are looking for the rate. We have everything else. So we're going to have to use our algebra skills a little bit. So here's everything plugged in. We're looking for R. Now, I like how they did this. They moved this so that the r is at the back, which is what we're used to seeing when we do algebra. We're dividing both sides then by 1200. We get 0.055. We just turn that into a percentage. Okay, so they're telling us she had $5,000 in interest. Oh no, I'm sorry, hold on. She had $900 in interest. The principal was this. We don't know R, but we know it was for 3 years. So the first thing I'm going to do is make this move to the front. Just multiplying the 3 times the 5. Remember, we can multiply in any order, doesn't change it. And I only want to do this so that we see it the way we're normally seeing it as a factor puzzle there. I'm going to divide both sides by 15,000. Okay, and I get 0.06 is my rate. I'm going to turn this from a decimal into a percent, so I'm going to move it over 2 and I get 6%. Okay, so here's my interest. So pause this if you want to try it yourself. I'm doing I equals PRT again. Rate, my time is 5 years. Okay, so it's like talked about like a loan, but it's the same idea. They're borrowing it, but the parents are making $1,500, so it doesn't matter which way you think of it. It's still the same thing. Okay, I'm going to multiply these and just move it to the front. Divide both sides. Okay, dividing that to solve for R. Get 0.04 equals R. Get 4%. Okay, same thing. So they've modified it a little bit here, but we just don't know the original principal amount. We know the interest, we know the rate, and the time. So the same thing, we're just looking for a different puzzle piece. I like, again, that they've solved this and put this in front of the P just by multiplying those, and then they divide. So the principal must have been 17,590. Okay, so I equals PRT. Okay, we're looking for the principal. I've got to make my rate into a decimal, and I've got 5 years. So I'm going to multiply those two. 5 times 0.085. Okay, so I've got that just rearranged. I'm going to divide both sides by 0.425. Get 11450 equals P. So the original amount must have been 11,450. Right, we got one more of these. So this is the same. I've got my interest. I don't know the original amount. And the time was 5 years. So I'm just rearranging it, so I just multiplied 0.05 times 5. Now I'm going to divide both sides by 0.25. I get 9,600. Okay, so that's money. So the original amount must have been $9,600. Okay, this is kind of a hodgepodge section with a bunch of different kind of things. So we've got those rate change, percent increase or percent decrease to start us off. And then we're just using the most common interest formula and just learning a little bit about how to plug that in, how to solve for I don't knows, kind of also an introduction to some more simple word problems.